I'm going to lead us in the pledge, and I'm going to ask Member Uten to do his magic. Place your hand over your heart and salute the greatest flag in the world. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear God, please bless these proceedings and aid the directors in making good choices for the public, and bless this food to our use.
Well, we have cookies, don't we?
Not lately.
No? Okay, roll call, please.
Director Michael Schaefer is absent at this time, but will be reporting later.
Okay.
Director Robert Uten.
Present.
Director Arlene Schaefer. Here. Director Arthur Perry.
Here.
And President James Ferriman.
Here.
Thank you very much.
We do have a presentation this evening. Are they?
Yes, Mr.
they
President, they're
here?
not here right now. But
Oh, you want to wait?
Yeah, they know they're aware of the meeting, so unless we're running a little bit behind, we can always bring it back to them later.
Okay, let's move on then. Any late communications?
Yes, Mr. President, I did receive this morning, or last night, we received an email from Mr. Mosier that his comments were emailed to you this morning as well. You have before you tonight. Some of the comments were already, responses were emailed to Mr. Mosier this morning, and then staff will be addressing his concerns later tonight as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Public comments. This is the time for the public to address the board. I know that we have Bill Nelson here.
Yes.
Who would like to, Bill, come on in. Just right here.
All right.
You have 3 minutes.
Okay.
And then we'll drag you out of
I
here.
won't take that much time. If you just give me your vote, I can leave right now.
Okay.
But my name is Bill Nelson. I'm a trustee with the Orange County Cemetery District, but I'm also a director on CSDA, the California Special Districts Association. And each CSDA is divided into 6 regions. We're in Region 6 here. Each region has 3 directors, and each year one of them comes up for re-election. And this year it's my turn up for re-election. So what I'm here to is ask you for your vote here. And why should you vote for me? Well, because in addition to the information I've passed out to you about my board experience on several different boards and my private industry experience, since I've been on the board, with my financial background, I've been able to significantly improve the board's financial reporting. I'm on the physical committee where I did that. I'm also on the membership committee where I've recruited 3 of the toughest water districts in Orange County to join CSDA since I've been there. I got Yorba Linda, which has not been a member for like 20 years. I got East Orange County Water District, and I got my own water district, which was real embarrassment. Serrano Water District is my home water district, and they were not even a member, so I got those 3. In addition to that, I serve as an ambassador to new members throughout the state that come into CSDA, someone to welcome them in, to tell them how they can make the best benefit out of their membership and kind of mentor them. In addition, in Region 6 here, each year I send out information to all the districts in Region 1, information on what CSDA's past accomplishments for the year were, what they expect to do in the upcoming year, and ask for feedback on how we can make the programs better. And of course, here in Orange County, for ISDOC, I give the Executive Committee a CSDA update on a monthly basis, as well as a CSDA update at the quarterly ISDOC meetings, as well as I give monthly updates to Waco. So with that, I respectfully ask you to put this on your next agenda and vote for me. The ballots are coming out on June the 7th, and they're due back to CSDA on August the 2nd. So with that, I thank you for letting me speak to you here. Any questions?
Any questions of Bill?
Just one. Do you have any opposition?
Yes. My understanding is a gentleman named George Manigail from Rainbow Water District in Fallbrook. He's the only one that's applied so far. But, you know, San Diego already has the 2 other seats, so I
Yes,
think we
yes.
certainly should have one,
Yeah.
at least one here in Orange County.
Well, Bill, thank you very much for
All right.
sharing that with us, and we'll certainly consider your candidacy.
Thank you very much.
Uh-huh.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks for coming.
We have a card from Mr. Mosier. Would you like to speak now or when the items come up?
Mr. President, it should be with the items.
Yeah, okay.
The public comment period is for any item that's not on the agenda for people who want to speak.
Okay, that's right. Okay, no other public wishes to address the board. Consent calendar. I would entertain a motion.
Move for approval of the consent calendar with corrections as indicated.
Second?
Okay.
Yes.
Are we aware of what those?
Mr. Mosier made it in your comment you submitted. He submitted this morning, and I submitted you this morning as well. A minor comment on the minutes regarding Vice President Schaefer, Director Schaefer. So we made those
Oh,
changes.
okay.
We made those changes.
Revised minutes are now in front of us.
Any further discussion or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are,
President Freeman, did you miss the ceremony matters or just that?
they aren't here yet.
Oh, that's what you're after.
We'll have to go back.
Got
Yeah. General Manager, District Clerk reports.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next item on the agenda is the knowledge transfer program, and this is a different approach to a traditional succession plan. It's a program that is tailored to smaller organizations where employees are performing dual roles like we do here in the district. And then all of a sudden, you might have a vacancy in the organization, and that employee leaves to another organization. What happens is that vast knowledge and expertise is lost after that person leaves. And then sometimes what we find is the transition for new staff can be very challenging because they're not familiar with district protocols. As you know, the district recently hired the Morando Group, which means getting better all the time in Spanish, to perform the knowledge transfer program. Mr. Patrick Ibarra, the co-founder and partner of the Morando Group, is here tonight to give the board a brief presentation of the program. And attached in your staff report is the final report that Mr. Ibarra prepared. So I'd like to turn it over to Patrick Ibarra.
Great, thank you. Well, I'm glad to be here in front of you, ladies and gentlemen, this evening to take you on this journey through knowledge transfer. Trying to explain what it is, because nothing ever really exists until it's in PowerPoint. We put together a PowerPoint presentation that you have in front of you. And I'm going to go through this, give you a little quick background on my firm, but more importantly, describe the impacts and the results from adopting this knowledge transfer program and how really it will ensure the continuity of business that the district is in. So, next slide, please. As Scott said, Mejorando Spanish means getting better all the time. It's my firm. We started in 2002. I'm a former city manager. I spent 15 years in city government, and during that time I was actually oversaw a variety of public utilities, so very familiar with that. I have several associates in my firm. Everyone has experience in local government, public sector agency operations. And we have particular capabilities and expertise in designing succession planning programs for public sector agencies, in particular knowledge transfer programs. So it gives you just a quick background on who we are, a little bit about what we do. Next slide, please. This is a testimonial that was created by Brian Janonis, who's the Executive Director of Utilities for the City of Fort Collins. He oversees water, sewer, stormwater, and electric. And this just shares with you all sort of how he viewed the challenges they had. They're a 400-plus employee workforce organization, much different challenges than you have. The thing about knowledge transfer, when people leave, these are scalable challenges. Larger organizations, they experience it because they have so many people aging, hitting that retirement age. Smaller organizations like the district here, their challenge, as Scott said, is people don't wear just two hats, they wear several hats. And so when they leave, they depart with them much of that knowledge that is crucial, and not just in their role, but in several roles that they're filling. So this was just a success story Brian wanted that I thought we would share from Brian's point of view. So next slide. So the issues that you have as an organization, I'm sure you've discussed these at length with Scott, but just our viewpoint here is that the size of the workforce presents you some unique challenges. So as Scott said, conventional succession planning, which is sort of building replacement, building your bench, if you will, from the inside out, is not really an opportunity because you don't have that level of mobility primarily within this organization. Certain occupations in this organization, there are no natural successors. So building leadership, management, skill development within the organization in a conventional way, a larger size organization doesn't really work. We have the explosion of technology as evidence in front of you with the iPad and tablet. There's so much more challenges in organizations today with information. Not only are we consumers, but how do you move information around? There's software, I mean, there's just a ton of different software. So you have this explosion of technology. When someone, again, remembering this is for successors, the knowledge transfer, it's not so much for the people currently working, it's for people that would follow them. How do they get their arms around all of that information in a way that's practical, right? And what organizations have found historically is this notion, the third point here is, it's not that when people walk out, you're not trying to transfer everything people know. That's not even practical. And organizations have tried that. What we've really tried to do as a methodology is, what's the tacit knowledge people really possess? What's crucial to the continuity of the district business on a regular basis? What we call sort of the highlight reel of what people do. Not everything, not asking people to write down everything they know about their job is, again, not practical, and it's hard to repurpose that information in a way that's meaningful to their successors. So as people leave the organization, you have a fair amount of turnover, just like everyone else. They take with them a lot of that tacit knowledge. And when you hire people with certain credentials, capabilities, degrees, a pedigree, if you will. That's not necessarily that enable them to do the district way of doing business, because you have your own culture, your own way of doing things. And while they have those education and experience, it doesn't always translate well into how things get done within this organization. The fourth point there is a competitive marketplace. Again, you're an employer, so you're trying to compete for talent and retain talent, and the demographic changes. So that impacts on the recruitment and retention, which just increases the likelihood that when people leave, they take with them that information. And then the final point there is increasing service demands. You know better than anyone that the public is fickle, and they want more and don't want to necessarily pay for more. I'm sure you're very accustomed to that. But the service demands are always fluctuating. So the continuity of your business, it's not, the way you're doing business today is not necessarily the way you did it a few years ago, and the way you're going to do it in a few years from now is not necessarily the way you're doing it now. So as that ebbs and flows, you want to make sure that there are people in the organization that understand how to transition that knowledge in a way that people can use it. So again, this is tacit knowledge, meaning that particular contextual knowledge to the district, which is different than a job description. Remembering a job description is very task-oriented. It's about completing a series of tasks. It's not really the knowledge you possess. So this is a transitional tool that really extracts from someone's, best we could, short of putting a USB port in their head, grabbing a lot of that tacit, explicit knowledge and grabbing it out of them and repurposing that. So, next slide. So here are the different strategies that organizations adopt and implement to do knowledge transfer. And I'm just going to go clockwise here. I'm going to start off with expert interviews. And I circled that in particular because what we saw is that was the most appropriate for this organization. And an expert meaning the incumbent employee. And I'll go through how we approach this shortly. Apprenticeships, communities of practice, document repositories, all the rest I'm going to come back to at the very end, because these are also strategies the district can use going forward. We merely are identifying one, but providing you a series of strategies that we've included in our final report to Scott and you all to use moving forward, that you can optimize the knowledge beyond just what you currently have in place. So the expert interviews. Now the way we tackled this, next slide please, was everyone in the district, including the former accounting manager, Teresa, was included in this. Right? There's 14 employees, so again, the expert interviews is the approach we use. I met with each and every one of these employees and reviewed their position description as well. So I'm going to give you some of the mechanics of this. I put together a series of questions, reviewed their position description. I sat down with them in this room and spent about an hour, hour and a half, depending on the person, asked them a series of questions, and I transferred that in my own notes to sort of grab that highlight reel, again, of their position. Yes, everyone has a highlight reel to their job, and that's what we wanted to try to grab, was what is the most compelling, the most important information, and I'll give you some thoughts about that here in a moment. And then what I did with that was I pulled all that together, aggregated it all, put it together, put it in a report to then share with them. So I sent it back to each person. Each of these people got a chance to see the draft, and I asked some more questions, and people filled some blanks in for. And so we put it together. This was a collaborative process. The kicker here is, as I shared with each employee I met with, they're not really the recipient of the benefit of this program. It's their successor. So it's kind of an odd project on face value is, well, how do I benefit from this as an employee? You really don't. It's that when people leave, this would be a tool that you would hand to their successor. You would even also use it for screening applicants. So it's kind of an odd project where the people that are actually participating don't benefit from it in particular. So, but this is the list of all the employees, just in alphabetical order after Scott. And next slide, please. We met one-on-one with the participants, reviewed their job descriptions. As I said, I prepared the summary and then returned it to the employee for their review, and then captured all of this and put it in the final report for Scott, and to share and to use going forward. This is not a report, you know, which is right here. This is not a report that's supposed to gather dust on the shelf. Within this report is each employee's position summary, as we call it. So you can pull that out, and Scott has an electronic format. So as people leave the organization, this information can be shared with their successor in an immediate way, right? Because the challenge you have when you start a new position is not so much your education experiences, because people will have that walking in the door. It's what do I need to do first, and how do I get it done with this organization? Who do I interact with? What are the deadlines? What are the reports? How about outside agencies that I interact with? And some people in this district spend more time interacting with people outside the agency than they do with internally. That's not intuitive when you start a position. So that's what we're really trying to capture, is that particular knowledge to that person's role to help them be successful. And again, as we can all appreciate, when you start a new position, you want to try to hit the ground running and be successful faster. This is a tool to help accelerate that transition. Next slide, please. With Scott, we did a little bit different variation. We did this in other agencies as well with the executive director or general manager. We actually videotaped him. And in advance of the videotape, and this is not available on Netflix or anything, I don't think, for download. But what we did, I shared with him some questions in advance so he could start putting his thoughts together. And these are the questions, these are a sample of the questions that that I asked him on camera. And we spent about 60 to 90 minutes. And he did very well responding. He had notes in front of him. He had prepared for this. And I asked him the questions, and these are just a sample. I'm not going to read all of them to you, because in his role, as you all can appreciate, it's a much different role than other roles within the organization. Both dealing with the board, which presents its own unique challenges in his interactions, dealing with external agencies. Some of that gets lost in translation with the written word. That's why we videotaped him. And that's a common practice for people in executive roles. Now you can imagine, and Scott, we talked about this, that how that would have benefited him as an incoming general manager if he could review his predecessor's highlight reel of his position. It just helps you kind of learn the particulars, the players, the role, the responsibilities, the relationships that you have to generate that are critical to him being successful in that role. So again, the videotape, which can be used whenever Scott departs, to help use as a screening tool for his successor. When that person's on, that person can watch it periodically. One of the things we recommend is all these position summaries, including Scott's, be updated at least once a year, so it doesn't get stale, you know, if it's somebody leaves 5 years from now. So again, these are tools that have very practical use, and that's the whole point here of knowledge transfer. It's not some theory, it's not just some consulting project. It's a way to repurpose knowledge that's valuable to the organization continuing its operation. So as you can see from the questions on this slide, as well as on the next slide, if you would, these are all very contextual responses that Scott gave, very clear, very articulate, to help that person succeed faster. And again, that's really the key here, is Scott's not the recipient of this video, which he has. It's the person that would follow him. And that really will help that person to hit the ground running, that's cliche, and operate at a high level sooner. Because remembering in your organization, with high expectations of people, how do they achieve those goals sooner? This is a tool. It's not the only tool. It's not a solitary tool. A lot of other factors have to happen. This is one more in the toolkit to help those people succeed faster. So again, these are questions I asked Scott. Just gives you a little bit of flavor of what we focused on. The other employees all the other employees that I met with, we asked them their responsibility. I asked the what and the how of the tasks they did. What does one need to know to be able to complete those tasks? Even identify the storage location of key documents and plans. And again, this gets back to technology. Everyone in here has followed their predecessor in a position, and trying to sort through someone else's files or handwriting can be painful. And in today's world, where people don't always have the same way they store electronic documents, is it alphabetical, is it by year, is it by contractor, is it by what have you, we even included in the highlights of the position summary the actual file name for some of the more frequent reports that people within the district generate. So if something should happen to them tomorrow, someone could look at their position summary and actually go into their computer and find it without having to recreate a document, which in some respects can be very time consuming and time and wasting of time beyond the loss of the content, right? No one likes to go in and do redo work. So we even were able to, for those people that accessed not every file, right? This was not an exhaustive inventory of every document they ever created. Those that are most critical to their role. And then we qualified this, and when I met with them is calibrating not everything, but what is the most important aspect to your position, and tried to grab that and repurpose that. The crucial dates throughout the year. In maintenance, we talked a lot about the frequency of maintenance. When do things happen? Financial, we talked about audits and updating and treasury reports. When do things happen throughout the year? Again, people inside know that, but when somebody comes in from the outside, that's information they don't know. Every organization has its own sort of preferences and practices. So that will some of this is very detailed. It's even administrative, and again, that helps that person succeed faster. Next slide. We also asked them, who are those key partnerships you have with external sources, such as community groups or vendors or suppliers? There's several people in this district that interact with other agencies. Who are their contact people? I mean, even to get to the point to where a phone number, an email address. Again, that's information that when someone comes in, they don't know, it's overwhelming. Who do I interact with about what and how soon and how is that critical? So we tried to answer a lot of that. Who are those key relationships with other district staff? There are some people in the district that work more with others, co-workers, than they do other people. What's that about? For what? Ask them what training, developing, and networking opportunities are relevant to that position. In other words, how do they stay connected and qualified in their role? And then the last piece there is, what are some lessons learned? Some of those shared stories to be successful. What kind of advice would you impart to your successor? People love to offer that up. So, how these can be used, the position summaries for recruitment and selection. So before and right now with the accounting manager, and Scott and I just talked about that briefly before your meeting, using the position summary both to look at what are those critical functions that person has to manage well, using that as a way to craft the profile, generate interview questions, and then more importantly when that person starts, to provide them as a tool to help them move faster in their role and accomplish the responsibilities sooner. Provide to those successors. So again, as I said earlier, this is an odd project in that the people that actually participated don't benefit from it directly, but it's a tool, and again, because of the size of your workforce and the not that you have high turnover, but you have steady turnover, as people leave, they take with them a lot of that knowledge essential to maintaining operations of the district. You want to make sure that that is captured, repurposed, and for their successors. I recommend in the report that these be revised periodically. Now that the tool is in place, it's simply a practice of updating it. So it's not starting all over. This report that we provided has a long shelf life, and these tools have a long shelf life. So it doesn't require me to come back here and work with the employee. They now have it, it's electronic, but making sure that it's current, on an annual basis or 18 months, definitely before someone leaves, but at least on a regular basis, because that information will change, and that's important to capture so it doesn't become stale. We also recommend in our report that there should be essentially like a 3-ring binder, a transition job aid that's put together, including the position summary. So if somebody left today and their successor started in a week, let's just say, they would receive, among other documents, this 3-ring binder that would include the copies of reports they have to do. Here's copies, file names, budget information, an organization chart, a phone list, file names, and the position summary. Again, we're really trying to calibrate the information. When you start a new position, it's overwhelming about sorting through and determining what's most important. The project that we adopted here that Scott acknowledged and we're helping you operationalize is making that information meaningful and relevant and manageable, so people are not overwhelmed. Key there is so they can move faster and succeed faster. Next slide, please. We also recommend a series of other strategies that we would encourage the district to consider. Scott and I have not had the opportunity yet to discuss these. We do provide them in our report. We're going clockwise. The other strategies to transfer knowledge are apprenticeships, internships, and traineeships. You have some of that here. And all of these don't apply universally to the district. These are a sample, a buffet, if you will, of other knowledge transfer strategies. There's even more than this. I cut it down to what I thought would be the most relevant for the district. Community of practice, that's really helpful out in the field. You have field operations, and while they're transferring a lot of service maintenance information to computerized software, to databases, communities of practice also help very much people out in the field about how they tackle particular maintenance issues. Essentially, it's like a group mentoring approach. Document repositories, most organizations are very familiar with that. Sort of the archiving of files. And how do people access that? What are you storing? And then how do you retrieve it? The retire to rehire. A lot of public sector agencies have done that, especially here in California, when people hit a certain age and they've hit the retirement, they're brought back either part-time or full-time. There's caps there about how many hours they can work. But that's also a way to transfer knowledge. I'm a big believer that when people announce they're departing, and I advocate this to clients, is that those especially if they're going to retire in 3 months, that their last 3 months on the position in their role is not just the typical 3 months. It's how do you grab that information before they leave. So your role is also accomplishing your responsibilities on a daily basis, but over the next 3 months, we're going to try to grab as much tacit knowledge in your head before you leave. So that's that retire, rehire. The next one, job aids. You have several of those, especially what I found in the maintenance, where there's a lot of information stored in the trucks for the maintenance crew, where if they have a question, they can go right to a document, a tool that's easy to understand. It's captured out there. So again, job aids. Some of these are more relevant for maintenance, and they are using some of this. Again, we're reinforcing that. On the job training, we're all familiar with that. How do you help people grow into the position, expose them, again, accelerate their growth and development, learning new responsibilities. You have a lot of that going on because of the turnover you've had in the last few years. There's a lot of on-the-job training for people. We're all very accustomed to that. That's also a way to transfer knowledge, and we're just identifying that. Districtopedia, sort of my term, it's a wiki. Younger people tend to use wikis more than boomers do, but the way you capture information, organizations are capturing more and more internally in their intranet, if you will, a wiki about how things are done, and then other people can access those. We did for this project the expert interviews, which was the experts were the people doing the job, not us, right? They're the experts, they're the incumbents. So, the outcomes of all this, why do you do all this? First and foremost, it continues the district way of doing business. That's really what is at risk when people leave the organization. Chances of people leaving this organization in droves is limited. That's not the challenge. It's that because people have unique roles and they wear so many different hats, extremely versatile in many different ways, that's what really is at risk when people do leave, is how do you maintain that? This helps that. It's not the only solution, it's one solution. You're transferring high value knowledge. What I mentioned earlier is this is not, tell me everything you do. Let's sit down and do a desk audit for a class and that's not what this is. This is the high value knowledge. What is most essential for you to do your job well? Right? What's mission critical, in other words? You're doing this to try to minimize the loss of knowledge. Something happens to somebody, people get sick, people change jobs. You're trying to minimize the loss of that before people leave. Part of this too is also building your internal bench, that you're helping equip people, even if they're not potential successors, you're helping people that could fill in a pinch, because there is some knowledge that people can pick up and read and interpret and do if there's an emergency. To create knowledge repositories, this all, as you're already doing with archiving documents, we're all very accustomed to that. This is one more repository where you're storing information in a way that has practical use. What we tried to provide the district, and we think we accomplished this, was to create a cohesive strategy. It's not just about pulling levers. We provided you this knowledge transfer strategy. This was the first step in that. We outlined all the other activities that you can use going forward. Some people in the district, some members of the workforce are going to be more active members in those strategies than others because they lend themselves to certain roles more so than others. That's just the nature. Not everybody here, as you all know, do the same thing. So those other knowledge transfer strategies apply to some positions more than they do others. But they, in totality, they help transfer the knowledge that you want to most obtain and move forward before it's lost. And then the final piece to this is that it's a systematic and replicable approach. As I said, this is not a one-trick pony where we came in as a consultant and in order to update it again, because I know that's a question I'm often asked by governing body members is, are we going to have you back here to do this again? And so I just throw that out up front. This is a tool that really provides the district, and in Scott's identification of, and his consultation with you all about succession plan is, he and I talked about this last fall, we saw this as the most appropriate tool that you could use, and it really sets the table. In some respects, it's game-changing because it is a replicable approach that you can use. It's not, it require you to resource this for external resources to keep it current. So, the next steps. What we recommend is to identify a knowledge management champion, which most likely would be Scott, someone who really can be a visible advocate that sharing of knowledge is important to the district way of doing business. We also recommend for him to oversee a task force of employees. The key here is and determine the sequence of those other knowledge management strategies. on that wheel that I provided, what do you do next? And that's really what we think is up to Scott and that task force of a handful of employees. What works best, not just him sort of implementing it unilaterally, but really engage the employees in the spirit of collaboration and creative problem solving as a group. How do you include those employees on that task force to oversee? And what I recommended and was trying to be very explicit in the report and our recommendations was it's not for the task force to start over. They have a work plan. If they have the strategies, it's a matter of how they put those in place, the implementation of those. So it's not for them to go back and do rework, it's how do these work best for positions in the organization. Because if not, then this knowledge transfer can fade quickly because it's one more thing to do. And as we can all appreciate, you all have a high volume of work here. That's not going to diminish. We recommend these steps as a way to keep its profile in a visible way. When Scott's endorsing something, an active member, it creates a certain amount of horsepower to ensure that it happens. And the final piece here is, this is part of a larger succession planning, and I just offer some other strategies that you may consider at some point. Knowledge transfer at the top there, going clockwise. The talent pool, you're limited in doing some of that because of just the size of your workforce. Leadership development, I do think there are opportunities within the district, and I know Scott's very active in his professional development. There are other leadership development opportunities for members of this organization who could actively participate. And development activities, so it's sort of non-training activities they could be participating in. And then the recruitment and selection. You know, I like to say that hiring is like dating, you get what you look for. You can ponder that for a moment. But recruiting and selection is a key that really, as you look for that particular candidate that's a good fit, and really recruiting and selecting is about making sure that candidate is a good, healthy, compatible fit, because you do have a particular way you do business. And while someone may have education, experience, the right credentials, we really advise, sometimes the public sector has a love affair with credential as though it's a predictor, and it's not always when there's a particular fit you're looking for. So we want to stress that, and Scott and I have talked about that, is as you're more clear with your expectations about what kind of candidate you're looking for, the chances are you're going to be able to select that person, and that person's going to succeed. And that's the whole key to that. Then the final slide is just some information on my firm and what we do, other services that we do, succession, workforce planning, organizational effectiveness, and leadership and management skills training. And I'm all over social media, and as Scott said in my intro, mejorando Spanish for getting better all the time. We've been in business since 2002. So we wanted to give you some sort of a macro view of this, but also some sort of down in the weeds, if you will, so you can take a deep dive into understanding how this is being operationalized within the district. In a very practical, useful way. And that's why I wanted to spend some time with you today, not just discussing the macro issues of the report, but also how people can use this going forward. And the information contained in the report. So I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have about this. And I know I have a tendency to talk really fast. It comes with being a former manager. You have to talk really fast.
Anybody have any questions? Comments?
I thought the position summaries were really good for me as a director to look at to see what everybody's job is, reinforce what their jobs are. And for example, I didn't know that Naomi was the district clerk.
No, she's still a deputy clerk. But,
Okay, deputy, but she's going to be assuming that position in the future?
The agreement of that position, yes.
Okay, because that was one of the things I brought up before.
Yes,
So.
absolutely.
Okay, but good job.
Thank you.
Bob?
I think one of the opportunities is as a person leaves and they look at the information provided them, they should be asked to comment on what wasn't there,
Right.
because that'll be a great opportunity to enhance what they didn't find in the knowledge transfer.
Right.
So I think it's a wonderful tool.
Do you recommend an exit? In other words, an exit interview with whoever's leaving?
I think, that always helps, and especially using the knowledge transfer tool as a way to ask employees prior to their departure, so long as it's a voluntary separation, that they update that prior to their departure, absolutely. And you're right, very, very good point, is what was missed, and there's always something gets lost in translation. We tried to capture that high-value knowledge, and this is one tool. There are other tools as well, as we recommended, to help sort of create a stronger composite of the knowledge that people possess.
And as our organizational chart changes, which it has fairly dramatically, and there's, in the near future it could change again, we need to plug in, a description or, this kind of interpretation of it as we go forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think this plan is it's a good founding base to get started on knowledge transfer, and just like Patrick said, it's a working document. We're continually updating it all the time.
Okay, anything else?
It's good.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you so much for the opportunity to work with you. Have a good meeting.
Uh-huh.
Mr. President, I believe the school is here. The
Oh,
International
okay.
Christian Academy, Costa Mesa is here.
Okay, let me see if International Christian Academy of Costa Mesa.
Are we presenting something?
Yeah,
Okay.
I got right here.
So just give you a little background. As you know, the museum they did a competition for school children to
Whoa.
take trash and convert it to art, and it was a competition all around Orange County. And I'm pleased to announce that the International Christian Academy of Costa Mesa, I believe they won second place. Second place. And I'm sorry, do you mind introducing yourself to the board and I think a nice photo op for you too as well. So.
I'm Cecile Maida, and I'm the director of the school. And this is Sarah Thatch. She is the one that actually came up with the idea of what we made, and she instructed the children on how to do it. And this is Ali Vargas, and that's Unissa Carlberg and Guyan Carlberg, and this is Conta Cato. And they were a few of the children that helped create the project.
Can you tell us what it's made out of?
There are corn husks, eggshells, magazine papers that have been made into like little circular fans. At the bottom down there is, can you here? Let me put it up. They braided like Nordstrom gift bags. Sorry. And these are just brown paper bags, and then on the back
Oh,
are all
look at
empty
that.
soda cans.
Wow,
And
you guys did a good job.
Water bottles.
and what?
Water bottles.
Oh yes, water. Oh yes, they melt. They cut up water bottles
Uh-huh.
and put them together with a hot glue gun. So I think that's it. And these are magazine, or no, these are shopping bags also.
Mhm.
They're Christmas ones.
Well, I think that deserves a round of applause, don't you? Very good.
So
We do have a, yeah, yeah. We have an award we'd like to present to you. This is being awarded the International Christian Montessori Academy of Costa Mesa for winning second place overall at the Museo 3rd Annual Trash Art Challenge Expo. And we're really proud of you guys.
thank you.
Thanks for participating.
Thank you.
Take a group picture real quick. All right, 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
a big camera, isn't it?
Where are you guys located at? What studio?
We're off of Fairview and Baker. We're on McClintock and Logan, where it
Oh,
kinda
yeah, I know,
meets.
yeah.
We're in that little alcove. We have 18 months through 6th grade.
Awesome.
This is for you.
18 months.
18 months.
Really?
Yes.
That's awesome.
So, thank you very
We'll
much.
still
Uh-huh.
have that picture on our website, and if you leave your email address to Nalani, she'll forward that picture to you.
Oh, fabulous. Thank
Yeah.
you so
Thank you very
much.
Well done.
Okay, thank
Hey,
you
good
guys.
job.
Thank you.
That's really nice.
Thank you very much.
If we had a number of these contests a year, we could reduce the volume.
But thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, no, we're leaving this here, I think.
We'll put that in a special place.
Thank you so much.
Is that for us?
That's for us.
Oh, really? Awesome. Really?
Thank you.
Good job, guys.
That is something. Let's go put that in the front.
Yeah. Okay.
We should include them on our next, like a battery collection.
Yeah,
If they
definitely.
want to do this.
Yeah.
They've been on my list.
Welcome, Mr. Schaefer.
Down the lobby.
Thank you.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Sometimes volunteer work isn't
Uh-huh.
You're on the-
Okay, let's move along here. CR&R performance audit results.
Can we go back to the invitations?
Sure.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Mr. President. After his presentation to the Operations Committee, Mr. Michael Baye is returning tonight to present his findings on the CRI performance audit. And I do recommend that he goes through the entire presentation again so that it can be recorded on video and for the general public. And then afterwards, the entire board can begin discussing his findings and asking questions. So Mike, if you want to move the podium and we'll just move that podium around so make sure you. There you go. Yeah,
This
perfect.
good here?
Yep, that's good.
All right.
No. Thank you.
Well, evening, everybody. As Scott said, my name is Michael Ballier. I've been a consultant to local jurisdictions since, 1992. Actually, 91 is when I started tail end of the year. Over that time, I've probably done close to 150 to 200 audits of haulers, material recovery facilities, landfills. This past year, in addition to a number in California, I did audits in Florida and Georgia, and next month I go to Texas to do this. That's not to impress you, but to just impress upon you, I'm very familiar with the scope of work and the challenges that you face in administering a franchise agreement. I do thank the board and staff for selecting me to do this review, and I believe that the 31 questions that you came up with provided an excellent framework. If we could switch to slide 2. Again, as I mentioned, the board and staff developed 31 questions to measure CR&R's compliance with your franchise agreement. My scope of work was to look at basically all the documentation that they've submitted over the review period, to review your agreement, your historic agreements, to see if there's any areas there that needed additional focus, and then to actually perform an on-site review of records. What I did to simplify and try to make sense of all these questions was to group them. So area 1 was things I felt were financial review related. The second was operational, third administration and systems review, and fourth general compliance review, kind of a catch-all category. If we could switch to the next slide. What I'd like to do again, because I don't have the vision I used to, and also since I go into detail on all the items that were considered non-compliant or unclear, is just to use this for reference purpose. In summary, in the financial review, I found that 5 of 7 items, questions, were clearly in compliance. We did have one area that was unclear and 2 that were, well, actually 4 of 7. 2 were considered non-compliant. Let's go to the next slide, the operational review. In that area, basically we had an unclear, all the rest were clearly in compliance. And again, I'll go through in detail that area. Next slide, administration and review. And again, what I did in the report is I provided a detail of each one of those questions. I listed it underneath it. We went over what it was based on in the agreement, what the measurable compliance, measurable measurements. Sorry about that. Anyways, for each one, it's, what did they need to show to comply? How did they show it? And did they comply or not? Let's go to the last one. Again, this is a catch-all category, and really there was one there that was unclear. And let me go into that if we could switch to the next slide. Again, out of those 31 questions, 25 I felt CR&R clearly showed their compliance with your agreement. And that was out of 28 that had a thumbs up or a thumbs down, for lack of a better term. There are also 3 areas that I determined compliance really couldn't be shown with the agreement, and we'll go into those in just a minute. It should be noted for the 3 areas where I felt that they were out of compliance, we were able to successfully resolve those issues and give you the information that I felt the agreement entitled you to in the form and format that I felt the agreement prescribed. So again, let us switch to the heart of the matter and go into noncompliance number 1. That was actually your question 20, which addressed CR&R providing you with statements of recycling revenue. The issue that I found was that every few years there is a sort that takes place, a sample sort, to where CR&R projects the recycling and the composition of the recycling that they're going to pull out of your waste stream. Previous reports I found were using those extrapolated study numbers to present an estimated recycling revenue figure. I didn't think that that was the level of data that the city needed. I think it's important to, or the district, I'm sorry. I think it's important to note that you do not share in the recycling revenue, so there's nothing as far as a financial impact to you. It's just getting clear and representative data. So what we did is we actually went through and got you post-sort data. After the material is collected, taken to the material recovery facility, ran through the processing activity. This is what actually came out, and what the MRF operator, by giving you this as a testing, is your tonnage. Again, I felt that was important, that you had some type of guarantee that this was your diversion. So again, that was done as part of the audit, but I found that they were out of compliance because that hadn't been previously done. Estimated figures were used. Let's move to item 2. Number 25 was, I think, more of a communication issue than anything. As part of your agreement, CR&R is supposed to make available their audited financial statements and also the trial reports, which is what we reviewed on site in the audit, to show how they come up with those figures. Because they are a private company, they don't have that information readily available to the public. They have historically made it available to the district, but there was a problem in recent years where the data basically went into a wider loop of review than had been discussed, and so that practice was stopped. Again, what I suggested as the resolution which CR&R did is that they notify you, they provide you a simple report of compliance and notify you that those records are available for review at their offices, along with the trial reports, and you can review them there. So again, I feel they came into compliance, but during the audit period, they were out of compliance. The final one is the master manifest. That's question 27. Basically, your agreement has some language in there that I determined not only entitled you to know what was disposed and what facility it was disposed at, but also where are those recyclables going that are pulled out in the sorting operation. I think this is an important area in your agreement because as it reads right now, the County of Orange is also party to your agreement. They have a waste flow agreement with you where you're going to put that material in the landfill, and so they need to know what was quantified and what went where. So basically what we did in this process was we went through each of the facilities that your material goes to, how much material is going, what's the breakdown, and again, we produced that master manifest that your agreement calls for. Much like the recycling, what you were provided previously was a breakdown based on the sample sorting methodology, which was a projection, and these are actual figures. So CR&R is now in compliance, but again, during the review period, my determination was they were out of compliance. All right, let's switch the slide and get to the actual manifest itself. These are basically the locations that the district's materials are going to. As far away as China and LA County, Orange County, Riverside County. But basically there's a home for all your tonnage, so that verifies both diversion figures and disposal figures that are reported to you. We found that those were consistent with the reports you had received. All right, next slide. Let's get to unclear, and basically I think you need an explanation of how your auditor arrived at unclear. I've been involved in a lot of these audits, as I said. I've also been involved in a number of multi-million-dollar audits. I have a pretty good record at finding issues and clearly defining when something is as it should be and when it shouldn't. With that also comes a responsibility of not making a call that I can't clearly support. You know, I like being considered an expert in this field, and I think with that comes a responsibility to not make statements that I can't 100% back up. That's the issue I ran into with reasonability of rates. Again, the way that I look at it is a little bit different. I don't look at the total rate that residents are charged. I try to break out any fees, any district or city fees that are charged, to come up with a net to hauler number. That is a first pass to break down through the rate to determine if they're reasonable or not. Again, what I did was I looked at the 11 CR&R franchise cities. I established your audit period per resident rate, which was $17.20. That fluctuates up and down every year based on the amount of tonnage that your customers generate. Sometimes it can be higher, sometimes it can be lower. That's the number for the review period. I then compared it to their other cities, and if we could flip to the next slide. They're third highest among the CR&R cities, but again, the challenge is what is the impact of different rate revenue for the hauler? How much are they getting from the commercial franchise? Is there a subsidy? Is there not? A lot of times those aren't published. Again, the other problem that I found, which I think is fairly unique to the district's agreement, is there's also another issue that their rates need to be the lowest of any similar program. Again, you have a fairly unique program with the mixed material collection, but there is some terminology in there, and my apologies to the attorney because I'm not one, but there were terms in there that I couldn't give you 100% yes or no that these were reasonable or not. Again, the other thing I did was I looked at all 32 cities that I felt were applicable, and if we could switch to the next slide, I'll show you where you ended up there. You ended up 9th out of the 32, again looking at the net to hauler revenue that CR&R is keeping from their operations. Again, my challenge is saying that the rates are reasonable or unreasonable. I believe that an argument could be made, and what has historically been the argument is that Stanton and Rossmore, which have this mixed material collection and processing program, are the apples to apples comparison, and your rate is lower than those rates, so that makes it reasonable. Again, I have a challenge with that, but I don't know that I have a challenge that's valid to rule non-compliance. I really don't. That's why I listed it as unclear. I think you have some wording in your agreement regarding fully automated collection, referring to your program, and it doesn't aptly describe it because there's a lot of post-collection activity that's different with your program. I think the name should clarify that. Using the agreement as it's written, I think you could make an argument either way as far as reasonable. And so again, I'm giving you a brief verbal here within the report itself. There's actually a lot of description on that and kind of playing devil's advocate for both sides. And again, I'm sure there'll be questions on that. So let's move on to the next slide. The percentage of green waste diversion was a Kobayashi Maru type of question. There was no way to come up with an answer. The reason being CR&R in their studies, they do not break down the composition of what's thrown away. I'm sure there's a smattering of green waste in there, but again, it's not quantified, so I can't tell you if 98% of your green waste is recycled, 94%. The reason I did not rule this as non-compliant is that's not expressly something that they're required to do. They're not required at this point to tell you what's the percentage of what we're throwing away. Number two, from the figures that we were able to obtain post-sort, green waste is a significant portion of what's being diverted. So I would say you're easily up into the 90% plus of your green waste that's being recycled. I think they're doing a very good job with that material. So that balanced out the fact that I couldn't answer the question with the data they had. So I chose to leave it as unclear. I didn't feel it was fair to rule that as non-compliant. And the third and final unclear, most favorable rate. Again, I appreciate the Orange County Register. I follow them religiously to watch my son's baseball scores, but despite what their article said, your agreement does not entitle you to the best rate in Orange County. It entitles you to the lowest similar rate. And again, that is the term that I have a challenge with, just as I do with reasonability. It's all in the eye of the beholder. You need a definitive methodology, a definitive measurement tool, and I believe you have been operating under an assumption that has to be proven to be valid or not valid. During the audit process, I attempted to suggest some ways that that might be done. While I was given a lot of information, I wasn't given enough to do a full analysis of that. And basically, is a 3-cart system more expensive or less expensive than the system that you have? But again, that's still problematic because you've been operating for years and years and years under a certain definition. Business decisions have been made with that definition assumed to be correct. So again, I didn't feel it was appropriate to come in and say that that is a wrong interpretation, because really the agreement does not provide enough guidance as to what is right or wrong with that rate. I think that there are some issues that have happened over the years. I think when the original wording, which I believe has been fast forwarded through a number of agreements, those key terms, you know, that mixed processing was unique. It was starting to grow. We didn't know if that would be a county-wide phenomenon or if people would go to 3-cart. It's kind of transitioned to 3-cart now. So again, how does that serve the purpose it was intended in the agreement? Again, I think you have some 3-cart systems that are similarly priced, so that argues that perhaps they are more of an apples-to-apples comparison than we thought. You know, the fact that you guarantee the revenue through the property taxes is a financial benefit that isn't available in other cities. That's something to consider. But again, the difficulty is with your unique system, the level of processing and the level of diversion that you're being provided on the back end by your contractor is clearly superior to a lot of other systems. So it's not an easy call. Again, I'm not afraid to make a tough call, and I have. In North Orange County, they're probably gunning for me in some audits there, but I just couldn't in good conscience call this one way or another. So I thought the best approach was call it unclear, list arguments on both sides for the district to consider and resolve. And that leads me to the last page, my recommendations. I know that there are some questions on the diversion. Why was the number different? Again, having dealt with the state for a number of years, I think it's always wise to be proactive, to not assume that they're going to measure or operate the same way 5 years from now that they are today. As I said, I think facilities may have to provide a bit more in the way of justifying diversion figures, both in the study, and again, the study that CRNR has used historically is not a bad study. It's not wrong. There's really no prescribed state methodology for clocking a MRF and how much are you diverting. They also have their own proprietary technology in there, so actually sharing that information is problematic. Again, I think there's a way to do it. In the report, I go through what I think are areas that if the state ever does get into monitoring and establishing diversion rates, that will have to be ratcheted up and approved a bit, and that's something that I think you should get out in front of and do now. And again, tie those front-end numbers more with the back-end numbers, get that master manifest every year, and the facility guaranteeing that this is your diversion, you have a bulletproof system. Again, the problems and the terminology, you know, if I had to settle on a position, I would say your rates are fairly reasonable, but they could probably be better. And so that may be something that you want to address going forward, and perhaps adjusting some terminology in the agreement to a more concrete position for the district. But again, that wasn't the purpose of my review. My purpose was, as stated and gone through here. Finally, I think that there needs to be some software work in CRNR's system. They're very accurate in their record keeping, and as I said, their staff is top notch. They know the business. They have first-rate equipment, facilities. Again, and going through 43,000 lines of data on your carts and your customers and all that, I found $178 in error. So they're real good with that. It's just if we could switch to the last slide. I really like seeing customer data in this format. I want to know for each container size and the number of containers that person has, how many customers do I have in the district? And I had a difficult time getting the system to give me that data, and I think that should be fine-tuned so that you get a table like the one at the right that not only shows you a total cart count, but how they're distributed. How many people have two 60-gallon containers? How many like to just have one of the grandfathered 90s? How about the 35-gallon? How is that spread out as far as number of containers? And again, in going through that, we did notice some areas where additional carts need some attention, because there's grandfathered situations, the 90 going to 35-gallon. So again, by looking at it this way, you can really break out and look at each of those issues, and as you move forward, really keep track better. Again, on the left-hand side is data I also think is important to have. How many inactive or closed accounts do you have? You get that information, but basically you get what's added on, and they do a very accurate job of backing that out to come up with the approved number. But I would still like to know what's the universe of accounts, and when that universe of accounts actually might increase if there's a new development. I want to be able to track that. And so that was my last suggestion. With that, I will stop my monologue and open it up to questions.
Okay. Any observations or comments or questions? Bob?
Well, I really appreciate staff deciding to do the audit, and and Mike doing the audit made a lot of things substantially more clear to me. The key with a report is that it be implemented, and so what I would task staff to do with your recommendations, and potentially even have you help do it, is you come back in a reasonable period of time with an implementation plan. So we can say, we're going to do that, or we're just not going to do that, or they're going to work with CRNR and sometimes certain, we'll get the information, or they'll work with CRNR and say, you're never going to get that information. So what I'd like to recommend is that staff come back sometime in the fall with, or earlier, with a means of implementing the recommendations, or tell us they're not going to do it, or we shouldn't do it. But I thought it was a very good report. I went to sleep many nights looking at it.
I did.
It puts
I've
you
been
to sleep,
thinking
in
about
other
that.
words. All
I
right.
stayed awake. I didn't go to sleep.
Any other questions, or Mike?
Just a couple real quick questions. Mike, you'd mentioned two things that kind of triggered some thought process with me. You said that we are fairly unique with our mix, and I don't remember what. I
Mixed
use
collection, mixed processing.
Okay. Can you define fairly unique for me, just so that I...
Well, as far as in Orange County, I think you have one city, your district, and then an unincorporated area, which would be Rossmore, which is that Leisure World and another area.
Yeah.
So again, you have 34 jurisdictions in Orange County, and and then you have the sanitary districts that actually count as 35. So 2, 3 out of that number. It's not a common program here. So again, it's tough when that's your measurement tool. If you're just comparing it against another couple guys, well, maybe they've got bad deals too, and you have the best bad deal. You just don't know with that criteria.
To me, it's important to recognize that we are fairly unique. I mean, everybody else I know that doesn't live in those areas has to separate this stuff out. So you're going to get a better mix. I mean, there's all kinds of factors that we have to consider. So when you say fairly unique, I think that's important to know.
And that can be good. You can look at it that way
Right.
too. Again, you don't have 3 trucks going down the street.
Exactly.
You have
Right.
one.
Exactly.
You know, there's not meant as an aspersion against that. It just makes it difficult to compare reasonable.
Yeah, I like to think of unique as a good thing. So
There you go.
The other thing, there was a slide, and I'm looking at it, where you had the 11 jurisdictions, if you will, that are serviced by CR&R, and we came in at number
3.
3. Of those that are below us, do you have any idea how many of them get a commercial subsidy, or I don't remember the term we used the other day?
Well, and that's a difficult one, and probably I get in trouble with. There are some cities where I audit, and I audit exclusive franchise, and there's clearly a commercial rate subsidy in that agreement, and it's spelled into the commercial rate. In at least half of the jurisdictions that I audit, it's not a specified subsidy, but it is a propensity that the residential rate is a very small number comparatively. You know, 3-yard bin rate maybe $100, and maybe $118, and maybe $127. Those $18 differences don't really jump out at people. But if your rate is 19 or it's 24, you know, $4 or $5 is very noticeable to residents. So the tendency is to kind of deflate that residential rate and get it to a number, and then we make it up on the commercial or the roll-off. So
That's
it's-
exactly what I was thinking. I mean, I guess I'll use the fairly unique term again, because we're not getting any of that in our district. Ours is strictly
and
residential,
again, my
all residential.
guesstimate is, and I'd say I'm fairly good at it, probably about half the rates are so subsidized.
Half those ones that are below us.
Just
Or
overall.
everybody.
Just overall.
Okay, good.
Have to look at it more to
I
answer that.
appreciate
My-
your thoughts.
Mike, one other thing, and that is, some districts or city, well, I know cities use property taxes to,
In LA County, a lot more than Orange County.
Midway City, for instance, what is it, $1.8 million, I think, they have in property tax that subsidizes their rate. We have 200,000. So, I mean, is that figured into the equation?
It is and it isn't. Again, it's backed out of, you know, the administrative portion and the billing costs and all that. Again, my challenge with that on your current rate is that in most cities, hauler will have to deal with bad debt. They'll have to deal with mailing costs and billings going out. And so, for lack of a precise number, I think about 50 cents would be the impact of that. And it's a positive impact for your service provider here. So again, that's something else to maybe keep in mind when comparing the rate. Is you're a good customer to have because of that. Again, they don't have to chase down folks.
Yeah, but well, you know, you're missing my point here, I think. It's not apples to apples if somebody's getting subsidized to the tune of $2 million from property tax.
Well, again,
You can't compare us to that, you know?
And that's the difficulty in using a survey to make that type of determination. Because again, there's
Yeah.
subsidies in a number of forms. Like I said, the commercial rate subsidy is the most common one. And like I said, that's probably half the rates out there.
Mr. President, I was going to say that we're probably going to see a lot of that going away in the future because subsidies under Prop 218 are not really very favored. So those, as people get more and more compliant with Prop 218, I think that's going to even out.
Yeah, it'll change.
That'd make
Uh,
our rate lower.
Let me say one more thing, then I'll call it.
We're gonna look better.
We're gonna look a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
They're not gonna
Right.
give those subsidies after
Right.
a while.
We need to focus on what we're out of compliance with. I agree with everything you said, but our initial focal point should be correcting those areas that we're not compliant, and that's,
Right,
yeah. So,
okay. Compliment you. You did a great job, seriously, picking everything apart. At the same time, I'd like to see the board get more involved in all, what we're not in compliance with. In other words, maybe have a study session that we can sit and look at all the items that we're not in compliance with, or ideas that we might have, and be more active on all of this. Yes, I think, to have someone else do it doesn't really complete everything. We need to find out where we're at and what we feel as a board.
well, there's only 3 items really that we're out of compliance with, so.
Right,
But, I mean, there's some other marginal stuff,
There's
but, yeah.
There's others that, you need to look
Yeah.
at besides just that.
Uh,
That's my comment.
Okay.
I just had a question for Scott. Don't we know already about the cart counts?
We had a we received we have data on the cart counts.
That's what I thought.
But that data was a couple years old, so I think what Mike presented is more accurate data.
Yeah,
So
Okay. Because I know we do the occupancy report, that lists the units we have.
mhm.
Right.
And then I know that we receive payment each year for the carts,
Right.
and that's based on a criteria that can list the amounts.
Right. And I've got that list. I have that list, and again, it's a couple years old, so that's why I think the data that Mike presents it's more accurate.
So we're probably in compliance with that, which is unclear right now. We're probably okay. Would you say?
Yeah, I'd have to take a look at it.
Yeah,
again.
no, actually, that one I judged as in compliance. I mean, $178 with
Yeah.
43,000
Right.
carts is that's compliance.
Yeah.
Again, what I'm suggesting is by grouping and looking at those carts by customer and number of containers, we're able to find some grandfathered situations. We're able to find
Yeah.
4 carts that were over-reported. We were able to find somebody that actually owed for extra cart revenue the $178. So I just recommend grouping and presenting the data as we did in this review.
Any other questions for Mike at this time? Yeah, Jim, this will probably be a good time for you to, Michael, thank you. Very good job. We appreciate the effort.
Unless
Thank
you
you
have
very
to
much.
answer the questions, you may have to answer the
Can
questions.
I ask a question for the public?
Yes.
Mike, I've been trying to figure the answer out to this, and I think you just confirmed it for me. The word is trial as opposed to trail in the audit. I never could figure out if that was a typo or if it was trial or trail.
Well, it's trial reports or trail reports, either way.
Oh, it is
I've
either
heard
way,
it
huh?
referred to as both. It
Okay.
provides you an audit
You're
trail.
not helping me, you're making it more.
Technically, they're trial reports, which
Okay.
they then have to tie into the bank balances and all that to say this is reconciled financials. But I like trail. That's
Okay,
just-
I kind of like that too.
All right.
The other 2 comments, just, and maybe you already heard this, but just for historical purposes, the manifest wording was put into the contract because of our concern about CERCLA. We wanted to be sure they were showing where it was ending up, so we didn't get a bill someday for you dumped this improperly.
Mhm.
And then the fully automated, what we had before we went to this contract was we had this system where the trash guy put it on a lift and it lifted it up.
Right.
And so that's why we came up with fully automated. That
Yeah.
may be inaccurate today, but that's
That's what it was
that's
then.
what it was at the time.
No, and that was an improvement. Like I said, now virtually all curbside recycling programs are fully automated. They'll collect a black card, a green card, a blue card, 2 black carts, whatever it is. But again, that mends you in with a 3-cart program or melds you in when I think you need a definition that's distinct and unique to your program. So that's why I suggested changing that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jim's going to speak to items 13 and 15, well, 13 at this time, I guess, huh?
Yes,
And you have 3 minutes?
yes, thank you. you.
Thank you.
President, Ferryman. My name is Jim Mosier. I didn't want to talk about rates, but I did want to respectfully suggest that there are areas in which CR&R is not compliant. The auditors seem to find compliance, and some of these point to not a fault on the part of CR&R, but perhaps the board has allowed the contract to become somewhat out of date. One very obvious one is question 11, was to check that there was the correct signage on the trucks. In the contract, at least the copy I was given from 2006, said the signs on the trucks are supposed to say Costa Mesa Disposal. They obviously don't say that, so they obviously are not strictly or technically in compliance on question 11. Question 18 said that one of the things to check within that was that the operators of the trucks had their names on their uniforms. The auditor said that the names were not on them, so technically they're not in compliance with that. And question 24, the board in writing the contract had said that there was a wish for at least the bulk or for a great effort for green waste to be going to composting. And if I understood the auditor report, it's going to what's called alternative daily cover. It's actually going to landfills, and I don't think the public would really think that that is going to composting or being the same thing. So I think it's doubtful that question number 24 would be found in compliance. But what I really wanted to talk about is the recycling. All of us agree that recycling is important, and the board is going to be trying to sell the public on the idea that recycling is even more important, and we need to cut waste by 2020 to half of what's now going to the landfill. Yet I, as a member of the public, could find nothing in the audit that gave me confidence that we have any real handle on how much of this district's waste is currently being recycled. As Mr. Ballier said, the only hard evidence we seem to have is that in January 2011 there were some very small samples. Apparently trash was hand sorted, and it was found that 57.84% could theoretically be recycled, if I understand what the process was. And then in the audit on pages 17, 18, and 42, there are tables claiming to come what's coming out of the MRF from this district. But those are not actual reports of what's coming out from this district. It's just saying if we had 57.84% being recycled, this district would contribute 23,000 tons in 2012 of recyclables. And then they're just divided up the way that trash comes out of the MRF as a whole, which is very heavily weighted towards green waste that has very little value to it. And the only real data we have are these samples from 2011, which give quite a contrary result. So we're not seeing any real evidence in here or anything that can be confirmed that the detailed tables, they look very official looking, are in any way confirming that 57.84 is actually coming out. It's just based on the assumption that it is coming out, and then the numbers are distributed to make it come out right. So I don't really, it gives me no confidence that we know how much or what the composition is of what's coming out. And then a really key figure is on page 16 of the audit. Mr. Ballier listed the information he asked from CNR, and the very first item he asked is what is the total tonnage that goes in to the MRF from all the sources, not just this district. And if you look at the manifest, that number has been blotted out. So we as the public see the total recyclables coming out of the MRF, but we don't know how much total tons went in. So we have no way of knowing if it's 50% coming out, 80%, 30%. It's just totally in the dark. And the numbers from this district are just kind of made up on the assumption that we know it's coming out, but really no verification of that. So it gives me, as a member of the public, no confidence that we have a handle on recycling now. It makes it hard for the board then to sell the public on the idea we need to work harder on recycling if we don't know what we're doing now. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Okay. Have you gotten a feel of where the board would like you to?
Yeah, correct me wrong. My understanding is that you want me to come back, staff to come back with implementation plan of all the recommendations made in the audit, and you want us to focus on the areas that are non-compliant or unclear. Those are the ones we want to focus on first, and then and also have a list of all the other implementation plans.
Dean, do you have anything that you'd like to interject here?
Maybe just a couple things, Mr. President.
Please, would you come forward?
Come up the point.
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Again, my name is Dean Ruffridge with CR&R, and just a couple of small comments, Mr. President and Board. CR&R looks at this as a tool, as you do, and we were happy with the results and with the items that were reported as not clear or not in compliance prior to the audit and compliance afterwards. We've learned a lot through the process too, and we thank the board and we thank your auditor for assisting us and helping us make our material data and our reports more accurate. We had previously done these audits annually, as you know, because it has been required in your contract for some years, and it was done mainly with staff, and we felt good about those audits. This has gone into a much deeper depth, if you will, and we're really happy with it. We're looking forward to going forward and doing everything the board wants that you need to make an annual review of our franchise to make sure it's the right thing for you and your community. And the one thing I do want to add is I told Mr. Valier prior to the meeting that since Tuesday's meeting, I've had 2 cities call me and ask me what's a master manifest. And as Mr. Valladay knows, I was not sure what a master manifest was either before we started. And now we have a good format, and we appreciate you setting that format up for us. And these other 2 South County cities are interested in putting that in their franchise and their annual audits also. So we thank you for that. And with that, I'm open for any questions that you or the board may have.
I have a question. The root of this, one of the problems we have in accounting for what trash we have is the characterization process. Now, you know, maybe I was under the wrong impression, but I was under the impression that periodically we did a characterization to make sure that we were heading down the right path, and that the mix of our trash, you know, was really what it was, and then we would reflect that in you know, our reporting. It sounds to me like that's not good enough, or there's got to be another way.
Well, there may be another way. If you look at, for example, the Huntington Beach MRF, they do a different way than we do. And Scott probably knows the answer to this too, but we try to do a material characterization on each and every waste stream. For example, in your city, we have one waste stream, it's residential. But let's take the city of Stanton, which has a similar system as yours. We do a characterization on the residential. We do a characterization on the commercial A route, which is the clean, dry route. We do a characterization on the commercial B route, which is the dirtier route or the wet route. We do a characterization on the industrial roll-off route materials. So that gets a little more complicated, but I think Mike Valier said it best tonight. In 5 years, this is all going to change because the state's getting more and more involved in our business, especially in the material recovery facilities. Staff at least, Cal Recycle staff, has made a proposal to be more, to audit our facilities more and more, building their staff, building that bureaucracy, I believe, doubling or tripling or so forth, and sending people into our material recovery facilities and seeing actually how we're doing it. That's going to be problematic because we know the knowledge of the people they're sending out now doing audits on the cities, and if these were the same people doing the MRFs, they will not have a clue what they're looking at. The MRFs are very, very complicated, and everybody does it differently. And we're really concerned about who, what, and why they want to do it. Does that help? But I think it's going to change a lot in the next 5 years. A lot of changes.
But you're willing to work with our staff to come to some resolution on this characterization situation, because
not only that, but the other points that came up that were that maybe need to be better defined. We're willing to work with your staff on that also to make this a better contract, a better franchise, and everybody more comfortable.
Okay. Anybody have any questions, comments?
Thank you very much.
Does staff feel, Scott, do you feel that you have a grip on where we're heading here?
You want, like I said earlier, you want to come back with the board with the implementation plan, and we will present that to the board, and we will. The primary focus will be the areas that are unclear.
Right. And non-compliant.
Right.
Yeah.
Do we have a time frame?
Get to you as soon as we can. Like, again, President Uten, or I'm sorry, Director Uten said the fall, but we'll definitely get in there before the fall. I'm looking
Yeah.
probably in the summertime, maybe.
No, yeah, ASAP, you know, I mean, is the board good with this direction?
Yeah, you bet. Sounds
Yeah.
good.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, everyone who contributed to that. And we now we'll just talk about the budget for a while.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. For you is the preliminary budget for the next 2 fiscal years. Leading up to tonight, we've had several meetings to prepare the preliminary budget. For instance, on March 14th, we had the sewer rate study workshop. On March 28th, staff proposed spending plan. And then on April 3rd, we had a special negotiated plan. And on April 18th, staff presented the board projected revenues. So tonight is another opportunity to review and comment period before presenting the final budget to you for approval, which we'll present to you on June 27th. The rates before you, the rates for revenues, the revenues for solid waste, the staff is recommending a rate of $18 a month for residents. It's down from $19. Staff's also in negotiations with CNR to lower the net rate, as you just heard in the auditor. They're reduced by 50 cents because we don't do any of the billings like other cities do. So we're in negotiations to lower the net rate by 50 cents. Dean and I are hopeful that we can bring something back to you by June when we adopt the rates. So the revenues for on the sewer side is consistent with the sewer rate study. So there are no significant changes in the revenues for on the sewer side. On the expenditures, you can see on page 3 and 4 in your staff report what was deleted from the budget since we presented to you on March 28th. I also added some expenditures, and that's specifically to achieve the new goals that the board is considering in the revision of the strategic plan. So you'll see the new budget items. Since the staff report was prepared and submitted to you for tonight, there are 2 additional items I'm recommending, expenditure items in the budget. One is, again, what we just heard about the diversion issue. Mike By submitted a proposal of $5,000 to do a diversion study. And so my recommendation is to put that in the budget and do a diversion study. And then also, my recommendation also is to do what we call an internal count audit. And as to be sure that our current classifications on all our parcels that we assess are accurate. We have come across some of the classifications are outdated. They're still from 2006. So we're thinking that if we do an audit, we might see our revenues might slightly increase because.
Are you gonna do a field audit?
No. What we'll do is basically we'll have an audit look in our spring book in our accounts to make sure what's in our finance books, what we're assessing our parcels are accurate. That's an estimate about $50,000. So we're looking at $10,000 in the solid waste fund and $40,000 in the liquid waste fund. All total, what staff's proposing, you'll actually have a deficit of about $178,260, and that's planned because we're going to balance that with the solid waste fund, because remember we have in excess of about $3.4 million, and we want to draw that down as a result of lowering the rate. So while you see a deficit in the number, that is all planned.
Yeah.
It is balanced using the solid waste fund balance. And that is pretty much all I have for you tonight. Again, there's an opportunity for additional comments, suggestions, and then we'll bring the final budget on June 27th, and also we'll have the public hearing to officially set the rates on the solid waste and the sewer side. So happy to answer any questions.
Questions, Bob?
You took a couple items out of the budget, and to make it as close as it is, I think there was a tough laptop for staff, and I don't remember what else. Oh, yeah. The parking lot is fine by me. And I think you took out, or reduced the number of smart covers That's not on there.
No, I put that back. Oh, Richard was, but I didn't put that back in there, yes.
I would say with the quarterly budget that we saw earlier tonight, you know, with potential revenues over expenses of, you know, $300,000 or $400,000, I would like to see those items, or some of these items, and, you know, I would defer to what you want to do, but the tough laptops, I think those ought to be purchased this year. Or purchased as sooner than later. I appreciate you going through and trying to make the budget balanced, but, you know, at the end of the year, generally revenues are conservatively estimated and expenses are potentially conservatively estimated, but we always come over with an overage. So, I mean, you know, you meet the budget every year. But I think some of those things, at least that, we ought to go on we ought to buy them this year if we're gonna have an extra $400,000 in the solid waste budget.
That would come out of the sewer fund, because that would fall out, the
Yeah.
top tops were for the sewer fund, so.
And that was $4 or $5 million, so I think you can probably find it there somewhere. We have $1 million that we're gonna transfer into the asset management fund. You know, I don't know if those laptops help in any way with the asset management fund, but I think you gotta find a way to fund those things. And then one other deal, you know, I'm paying back Fitzpatrick's legal costs for paying down the public's cost, and you know, I would suggest you take $7,000 off the board salaries, because I am going to reduce that by that amount this year. And so when I get called on by, I won't say what I want to say, some of the public who live in Newport Beach and are consultants for the Orange County Republican Party, I'll have a defense. So, you know, you can do that or not, but I would appreciate you reducing that, because I'm not going to expend that money this year.
Thank you. I got your direction, I'll sit down with Mark and we'll look at the budget. And that's why this is a preliminary budget. I appreciate the feedback and comments, and we will take that and present a final budget for you in a month.
Art?
Okay, along with Bob, I felt the same thing. The exterior improvements, what were they going to be?
It was the shutters, right? Was it the shutters and the roof improvements too?
Yeah, to take care of some termite issues that we
Yeah, I would think that we should keep this in the budget, because it's only going to get worse if we don't take care of these matters now. And I think it's well worth the expenditure of $15,000 versus potential lot more down the road. And that's and I like Bob's idea about the laptops.
I don't have a question, I just have a comment. I know we're reducing the solid waste to $18 a month, and that's great. I mean, the last 2 years we've dropped $2, and that's not, I don't think that's insignificant. Obviously, I'd like to see it go down to 16 or 15, but I'm also prudent enough to know that we shouldn't be depleting that reserve totally. I mean, I would never advocate that, but I just think it's important, and I think the ratepayers need to know that we're doing everything we can to manage their rates and to get the rates down to where we've sort of been committed to being in that median range for the county. And I think we're doing a pretty darn good job of getting there.
We're gonna have another opportunity when this new MRF
Yeah.
thing opens, you know, in our negotiations with CR&R.
Yeah,
So-
and I appreciate your comments, Scott, by the way, about working with CR&R to get their net down. I think that's important, and for all the negative publicity that has flown out of the newspapers the last couple of days, here's a couple of pretty positive things that we're doing for our ratepayers that
You don't see any.
we don't get credit for.
You don't see any reporters
There's
here, do
no
you?
reporters here letting the ratepayers know that we're trying to reduce their rates. You know, I just pontificating a little bit that when you do a 31 question survey and 3 are complied with, so we're down to, what was it, 89% compliance. There's a lot of businesses out there that don't even come close to that. So I just think overall getting these rates reduced is we're doing our ratepayers a big service, I think. Still giving them the quality of service that this district provides, I think it's right on.
And it got to like the front page of the Metro, and it was sort of suggested like, oh, the audit found something, and it was wrongdoing. And then you read it and you go,
What's this all
it
about?
sounds like, you know, they got a pretty good report card here.
Yeah.
It's all the way they write the headline.
So, you know, yellow journalism did a lot in the history
Yeah.
of this country, so.
I have one other question
Yes.
about the manhole cover inspection for 25,000.
Yes.
You think that's needed at this time, or?
Yes, I do, and it's a 2-year program. It'll be half next fiscal year and half the following fiscal year, and it'll be tied into our GIS, and basically we'll rate it like we do our grade 5s, or 5 through 1. So if we notice a 5, we're going to jump on it immediately. If we have 4s and 3s, then we can plan it accordingly. I think we need to do a better job on our manhole
Would
covers.
that amount be 25,000 for both years?
Yeah, so the total is $50,000. So it'll be 25.
$50,000.
Yeah, $25,000 in 13-14, 25,000 in 14-15.
But does that include the cement, or does
No,
it
this is just the
include-
inspection, I think.
Yeah, this is just an inspection. This is an
Oh, okay.
inspection. Once the inspection, and they find it, then we got to come back. Okay, let's budget for repair,
Okay.
and that comes. This is just for inspection, and then documenting that in our GIS.
Okay.
Just to
And
take,
don't forget
just,
that'll save you money by
Yeah.
having that inspection program showing you
Sure.
considered what your budget limitations were and decided to take a step that's gonna look
Right.
good in any time you have to defend yourself in court.
just to take a little comment on that, I know this has been under my skin and I keep bringing it up, and I really apologize, but coming up Harbor Boulevard yesterday, between Merrimack and Adams, there are several manhole covers that have concrete around them.
Yeah.
That's the first time I've ever seen
I've
it.
seen a number of them at Costa Mesa, too.
So that was
We're all
kind of an
lucky- we're all
anomaly.
lucky.
I mean,
Is
it's
that
driving me
narrow?
crazy, but I look at every manhole cover as I drive over them now.
And as soon as you get to Santa Ana, they're all cement.
They're awesome.
Yeah.
As soon as
Yeah.
you cross
Yeah.
Sunflower.
They're not cement, they're concrete.
Concrete, okay,
Concrete.
concrete, okay.
Cement is a part of
Right.
concrete.
Okay, sorry about that.
They're not
Picky,
asphalt.
picky.
They're not asphalt.
Okay, let's move along. If there are no other comments or questions on the budget, are we all good? Okay, 15, Public Records Act, request policy and adoption of Resolution 2013-831.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. The line midway is going to give this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. We have drafted a records retention policy, and the purpose of that was because recently we have been receiving quite a number of records requests. Some of them asking for contracts or ordinances and documentation. So in order for us to be able to quantify the actual charges to be able to charge the public, we have developed this policy notifying the public of what our time frame is legally. We have 10 days to respond. If we are unable to locate all the documentation, we are then able to extend that by submitting an informational request to the requester and letting them know that it's going to take us longer to acquire the documentation. So that's also part of my response to the public comments that were received this morning. We have developed an administrative policy so that all district staff will be able to comply with that and follow that and those regulations. Also, we have drafted a resolution that states the fees that will be charged to the public. Let it be known that the fees that will be charged are for the actual cost of the reproduction of the documentation, not for any services or labor charges, just for the actual fees. And with that, I'm open for any questions.
I have a question.
Art.
Can we extend it over the 10 days legally?
Mr. President, if I
What
could
cause?
answer, just to
Alan.
add to what Nolani said, is that although we have a right to take up to 10 days to respond, Nolani and Scott have written in the policy as required by the Public Records Act that it is our policy to respond promptly and to be helpful and to get it before that time. But we have longer if we need it, and we can, in unusual situations, require some additional time if, for certain reasons.
Good, that was just my question.
I'm assuming it's legal for us to charge for that now.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
We can charge for the direct cost of duplication.
Okay.
That's a-
And these costs are pretty standard with what the state charges, I
That is
think, aren't they?
And part of our efforts in this department is to make sure that we are making the records accessible to the public. One of the things that we have done is to be able to provide our audio and video recordings of these meetings available on the website, so that there is no charge. Otherwise, if an individual does request for a recorded copy of the meeting, then we would then charge them the $10 fee to provide them with that DVD. Another way that we're trying to save the public money is to make our ordinances and minutes and resolutions available, which we already have, and those are available online. We've also digitized our contracts, so in the same way that I was able to send Mr. Moja that contract, we do not charge for that service. It's just emailable and it's readily accessible.
I'd entertain a motion. Can we take
I'm sorry,
to,
Jim, just one more quick question. I hate to belabor this. On Exhibit A, Nolani, is DISC spelled D-I-S-K?
No, it's not DISC.
That's what I thought.
Thank
Just
you.
That correct?
keep you out of trouble.
Jim, did you have a comment? Oh, that's right. You
you wanted one
Smith.
number 15.
I apologize. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, President Fairman. I had actually two comments on this item. One of them is probably more philosophical than practical. The two pillars of open government are public access to meetings, which we're enjoying tonight, and the other is public access to records. And you as the board are the interface between the public and the district that you're managing, and philosophically, just as the the records retention policy is one that you as a board monitor and set, I believe this Public Records Act request policy, the mechanisms, it's not really an internal function, it's a function of the interface between the district and the public, and you as a board should be setting this policy. It shouldn't be an administrative policy that the staff itself could set. The practical difference is very small, but philosophically I think it should be a board policy rather than a staff administrative policy. It's not, you are to set policy there to implement it. The other is a totally practical concern. In the resolution you're being asked to pass, I would question and do not understand why there's two different charges for making copies. One is a very reasonable charge of 10 cents per page if people ask for a copy of a paper document, and then for reasons that I could not find an explanation for in a staff report, if you ask for something that comes out of the imaging system or off of a disk, like an electronic, it sounds like an electronic item being printed out, for some reason that's 79 cents per page. And the actual material cost of printing, I don't understand how that could be 8 cents per page more to print it, depending on the source that it's coming from. So perhaps this is talking about oversized documents, I do not know, but it's certainly confusing to me, and a practical question, because 79 cents a page is quite high. And if you asked for a document and you actually wanted, instead of the electronic copy, printed out, that seems like a very high charge for printing it. Thank you.
If I may respond.
No, Alani?
The reason why the copy charge is different from a printing charge is because the actual cost of copying a document is a lot less than actually printing it. For the cost of toner and for the cost of the paper, that when you're printing is much more expensive. Hence the 75-cent fee versus the 10-cent fee. And you will also find those rates as standard, whether you go to a Kinko's or Staples or another reproduction facility.
What about another agency?
Another agency would charge the same.
Any other questions or comments? Entertain a motion. Can we take both of these items or have to do them individually?
It'd be better to do them individually, Mr.
Okay.
President.
Item 1, receive and file administrative regulation.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'll move adoption of Resolution 2013-831, setting the fees and charges for duplicating district information.
I'll second.
Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Adopting Ordinance 97, Operations Code establishing plumbing fixture fee credits.
Thank you, Mr. President. Anna Sanchez will be giving a presentation on this report.
Mr. President, members of the board, what's before you tonight is really a cleanup ordinance related to the established fixture fees that the district charges. The district established these fixture fees in 1970 and adopted new fixture fees or updated those fees in 2010. During this period, staff spent been applying credits toward fixtures, towards the fixture fees, for applicants for remodeled structures, similar to what OCSD does. So for any remodeled structure, the premise is that the existing structure has already paid those capacity charges. And so new fixture fees would be applied to the new remodeled fixtures that would be adding capacity to the line. So as we were going through this, we found that what's come to our attention is that the authority to provide those credits has not been set forth in the operations code. And the application of these fixture fee credits should also be uniformly applied and codified by ordinance. So what's before you tonight is the ordinance that would codify the authority to provide fixture fees. Additionally, staff finds that it's prudent to require the permit applicant to provide proof of previous existing structures on the property that's to be developed, so that the application of those fixture fees can be uniform and not at the discretion of this district staff.
Alan, are we okay on that one?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Move approval.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. California Legislative Analyst Report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. This is a new report we'll present to you quarterly, on a quarterly basis. As you know, the board authorized the president to sign support opposition letters on behalf of the board of directors when those bills have an official position by an organization we belong to, like CSDA. And so we regularly do that. When bills are on a watch, and we don't have a formal position by CSDA or other organization, but we believe it's prudent to take a position, then we will bring those bills, bring that recommendation to the board, and seek authorization of the board to proceed with a support or opposition letter. And with that, there's 3 bills that when we originally wrote this letter, wrote the staff report, that were on the CSDA watch. And as I learned, AB 1333 is now being opposed by CSDA, and it went onto the Assembly floor. It was voted on the Assembly floor yesterday. So on Tuesday, the Operations Committee gave us blessings to support and oppose these letters. So we wrote those letters, and because the Assembly was voting on it yesterday, President Fairman signed that letter on behalf of the board, and we faxed that out yesterday. But since on the agenda today, it'd be nice to at least get an official approval from the board to support SB 254 and then oppose AB 323 and 1333.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Operations Committee. Mike?
Again, help me out. I think the biggest thing out of the operations committee Tuesday was the CR&R audit.
Right. Yeah.
And we pretty much covered that, so
Yeah.
I don't know.
We don't need to
I don't think there's anything-
regurgitate all of it. No.
I appreciate that. So that would be my report.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Engineers report. Rob?
Thank you. Be happy to provide those reports. Item 19, project status report. Would be happy to answer any questions regarding the projects if there are any.
Any questions of Rob or Bob?
Rob, the notice of preparation for the EIRs, I'm not sure I've said that right, but in there it shows a nice diagram that you probably provided them data for, and it shows a 24-inch line coming down from Canyon Station, towards the system. So is that real? Is that real? It has to be that big.
There's a few reasons why the line is shown as 24 inch. As you know, the size of, or the capacity of the line is based on, number one, the size of the line and the slope. However, there are also, some of that line has to be installed using directional drilling, and their minimum sizes using directional drilling. And secondly, we have found that over time, some sewers become compromised with offset joints and all. So we didn't want to size it exactly for the capacity of the wastewater that would be going through it. We thought a larger size would be a little more prudent. So Those are three of the reasons. I'm happy to sit down and go through those precisely with you, but those are three of the reasons why it shows 24 inches.
Well, is that substantially bigger than you thought the pipeline might have been when they did your crude engineering?
No, it would,
You had that in mind?
yes.
Okay. That's really all.
Also in that report, you know, I saw it on the website of Orange County Sanitary District. Did it say that we were only going to replace 9 pump stations? I thought I read 9. I thought it was 14.
No.
No?
It was originally 7, and
Oh, okay. Well, I was wrong.
tailored back to 6. And of ours, then there were
Newports.
Newport Beach Pump Station.
Yeah.
Then there's a private pump station, and there's a chance for another pumping station, private pump station to be abandoned. So that's where the total got to be 9.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification. Any other questions of Rob? Okay, we'll receive and file.
Thank you. Item 20 is normal procedure for when a project is done. This was phase 2 of repairing the grade 5s, phase 2 of 3. Phase 3 is out to bid, soon to be bid open. So these are the normal few steps for accepting a project.
Move approval?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 21.
Thank you. This is a recommendation that the board approve sole source findings as written for the purchase of the 4 backup pumping station units. What the sole source, the importance of the sole source are that the Godwin backup units are compatible with the regular flight pumps that we use in a pumping station. They're manufactured by the same company. They have similar maintenance features. The Xylem, the owner of both Godwin and Flight, has low, not in immediate area, but has Southern California local maintenance and distribution facilities and replacement parts for both the Godwin and the Flight. And for those reasons, we don't want to have an incompatible backup pump where we have to house completely different parts, inventory, and have different procedures and understanding to take care of those pumps, those backup pumps that might possibly be different than our standard pumps.
Is there any significant cost difference between these pumps and another type of pump? Or are they more expensive or the same? Or
Well, they are slightly more expensive due to the fact that our flight pumps are a little more expensive because they are one of the very best in the industry.
okay.
So we have standardized along the lines of life expectancy and quality. And that decision was made back in the 80s when we
Okay. Thank you.
evaluated various kinds of pumps.
Director Ott?
Are these submersible pumps?
The backup pumps are actually slab mounted at the surface level and have a suction side that will go down in the wet well. So they're not submersible. It's a standalone surface mounted pump that has both the suction side and the discharge side.
It's a horizontal bookcase kind of thing, or self-priming, whatever.
It's self-priming.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Mr. President, I know you have a member of the public who wants to speak on this, but
Oh.
after you're done with this matter, and if you do approve this purchase, I would ask that the minutes reflect the fact that you made the findings listed under legal review for sole source and best interest of the district.
Okay.
All you have to do is say you make it.
Duly noted. Yeah. Did you have a comment on that?
No, I submitted some comments in.
Oh, yeah.
Just indicated I was confused by the report, but Robin's cleared it up. I just-
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I'd like to move for approval of
Second.
project 196
Second.
and indicate that we're
Yeah, under
going
attorneys.
with the
yeah.
findings.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 22, project 199.
Thank you, I'll take that. Based on the wisdom of the board and the general manager, we performed the soils investigation along the alignment of the existing Fairview trunk sewer that is being proposed to be transferred from Orange County Sanitation District to the district. And we did find wet conditions, not the severe wet conditions we found on Southwest Drive, but enough to worry us that it's not the dry conditions that we had hoped for. So we did put in a contingency for the wet conditions into the engineer's estimate, and staff recommends you accept that new engineer's estimate, direct the general manager to negotiate with Orange County Sanitation District to provide our condition assessment and the engineer's estimate and negotiate for payment of $427,600 for acceptance of that sewer line.
Very good. Any questions? Entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, board member.
I have a question regarding this.
Yeah.
Once it's approved, then we take ownership of this, of the line?
There has to be a transfer agreement.
Right.
We've already gone through 3 phases of transfers with Orange County Sanitation District, so they have a standard format transfer agreement, and the last transfer included 6 lines. So our attorney has reviewed a similar agreement on a number of occasions. So the basic agreement will be prepared by Orange County Sanitation District, and then the particulars will be reviewed by CMSD staff.
Because the reason I brought that up is you said that the general manager will contact Segerstrom and Sons.
Well, that was not, excuse me, Segerstrom and Sons has been requesting sewer service for the Home Ranch property. And part of OCSD agreeing to provide sewer service was that they asked that we take Fairview trunk sewer.
Right.
So the portion to advise CJ Segerstrom was to advise them that we are, based on board action tonight, we are prepared to accept that line along the lines of the negotiations of our general manager, and should that end up in an agreement that's agreed by both parties, then we're in the position to provide that sewer service to the Home Ranch as they've requested.
And then we would get additional revenues once they...
Yes,
Okay.
and those have been estimated in the past and provided in a report based on the 1 million square feet of possible commercial office space that they proposed for the Home Ranch.
Yeah, that was my point. Just want to make sure we get the revenues.
Okay, let's move along. Treasurer's report, investment report.
Thanks, Mr. President, board members. This is your quarterly review of the investment report.
At April 30th, cash and investments held by the district was about $20.6 million. It was a little high because right in April when you get your second allocation, large allocation of your annual charge. Portfolio at April 30th was earning 0.736%, and year-to-date portfolio is earning 0.784%. That's about half a basis point better than LAIF. LAIF at the time is paying 0.26%.
Might as well bury it in the backyard.
Yeah, so put it in a can. We did have two investments that were called in May. You had a Fannie Mae that was called that was earning 1%, a farm credit that was called that was earning 1.23%. That's since this report has come out. We've replaced one of those securities with a Fannie Mae, a 4-year Fannie Mae at 0.7%, and are looking to replace the other security during the month of June. With that, I'm available for any questions you may have.
Any questions? Thank you. Local meetings. Bob was at the Orange County Sand meeting for me.
Yes, well, I was at the Operations Committee meeting. Basically, this is the time of the year when they buy all their odor control chemicals, and there's a lot. I don't know how many millions of dollars they buy, but they basically probably 10 or 15 different chemicals and different suppliers, and they finally found a multitude of suppliers for ferrous chloride. When I was the director of operations and maintenance, the one iron supplier bought the other one, and then they showed a little graph of the prices. You know, they were this way when they had competitors, and then they more than doubled. So now they're back to where they have a number of competitors. What the market did was see, you know, that there's quite a lot of value in that service, and now there are a lot of other companies. They also bought the standards services by the standard services like surveying and other things. That probably we got started late. The steering committee ran over. That took about 15 minutes to buy those millions of dollars worth of commodities and services. Then we went into closed session. They discussed a dispute that they have with a contractor. They have a dispute with SAPA and a couple of minor things. And by 9:15, the directors were leaving.
Boy, I picked a good one to be absent from.
You picked a great one not to do that. Anyway, what they are going to have is a special session on the SAPA litigation. There'll be a special meeting on the SAPA litigation.
That doesn't sound good.
And then they discussed, the other two things that they discussed in closed session were, three things, were the various employee groups, and tried to provide Jim Ruth and others with direction, because those agreements end June of this year, which is relatively quickly, and so there's active negotiations, and so what the board was trying to do, what Chairman Edgar was trying to do, is provide Jim Ruth with
Direction.
direction. It was very interesting. And the other two meetings that I'll be requesting service for. I won't be requesting that last night, because I won't be requesting the meeting I went to. I'll be requesting the Operations Committee meeting, and then I'll be our Operations Committee and the other one and this board meeting. So that's all I have to report.
Thank you, Bob. Santa River Flood Control.
Yeah, Jim and I went to that meeting this afternoon. Well, that's why we're a couple minutes late. But two main items. They talked about the Westminster watershed study, and I'm going to give this to Alan when we get done. The current flood insurance policies that the 5 cities are paying because they're in the flood zone. City of Fountain Valley, they have 1,092 policies that pay over $1.12 million. City Garden Grove, 2,575 policies with $3,192,000. Huntington Beach has 7,000 policies, over $7 million. They're actually like $1,000 a policy to be living in the flood zone, which Costa Mesa used to be in.
Is there something wrong with charging those premiums?
No, no, but I just thought I wasn't aware that there was so much money going out.
They're
for premiums.
shysters, that's what they
So over $17 million.
So we're not anymore.
We're not in
Costa
the flood
Mesa's
zone,
not?
but
We have some.
FEMA's
We have a few, very few. But when they paved the channel,
right.
Yeah.
Dana Rohrabacher actually went to bat for Costa Mesa and got us pulled out of.
No. It was
Jim Silva
it was
started it.
no, it was the Seven Oaks Dam.
Well, that was part of it. Yeah.
That's what got us out of it.
But Rohrabacher was pretty instrumental in getting that changed for Costa Mesa.
So I thought that was really
Much
interesting.
to my chagrin, by the way.
Why did you have some policies?
Yeah, I had my own.
Okay.
As a side comment, when I showed up to work for Orange County Sand District, Blake Anderson wanted me to live close to the treatment plant. And I said, well, what are these walls around this facility? He said, well, they're flood protection walls. So I moved to Costa Mesa.
Okay, then the other item, which took most of the time, was a report on the SARI line. And that's going to be finished, I think, in October 2013, but it's not going to be till the start of the first year, start of next year, 2014, that's going to be official. But they're going to have it in operation. The project's about 70% complete. They have the longest curved micro tunnel in the country. And this and they have 3 manholes, deep manholes in this tunnel, and each one cost $1 million to have a manhole put in. They eliminated one by the contractor having a curve in it. So they eliminated $1 million from the expense. I brought this for you. There's some pictures of different parts of it. I thought you could look at it if you're interested. They have purchased 60% of the land behind Prado Dam, which is pretty good. They were hoping to get over 50, so they're at 60. They've just completed like a 227 acre. I think they did it by. How did they do that, Jim? They did it by
Eminent domain.
eminent domain. But I think they received $50 million from the state last year for subvention funds, which they were surprised about. And the year before, they received a large amount also. But they're still a long ways away from raising the spillway. It's probably going to be, he suggested, maybe 2018. So the project is still going to go on because you have to buy all the land behind Prado Dam.
Yeah.
But I have this for you, and this is for Alan, this is in case you wanted that fact sheet. I don't know if you need it or not. You probably already saw it, but.
Well, I'll take it.
But they're going to be giving it to all those 5 cities, city managers to look at to try to get some more pressure on picnic for the watershed and Westminster watershed. That's about
Okay,
it.
very good. ISDOC?
I missed the regular board meeting last Tuesday because we were in Sacramento for CSD Ledge Days. But I will remind all of you that May 30th is the quarterly ISDOC meeting at the Water District at Modoc. And the speaker will be Mr. Berardino from the Orange County Employees, whatever he is. I'm sure it'll get a,
What's his topic, does it say?
I don't remember.
I'm just
It
curious.
has to do with,
Duck and cover, probably.
no, it has to do with fair and open negotiations.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm sure it'll be a well-attended quarterly meeting for
From
ISDOC.
his perspective.
I'm going to be attending Nolani. Did she send all you guys a thing about
Yeah.
attending?
And everyone has been registered.
Great. Before we move on to CSDA, we're still showing California Association of CASA on here on the report. We might want to take that off, Scott,
I
since we're
went
no
to-
longer a member.
Sometimes, okay, we can do it, but sometimes we still go to their conferences or training, just
Oh,
not
I
as a
just thought
member.
it'd be go under
I
other
went
meetings.
Yeah, no,
to
we
it
still
and
go.
Rob, you went to
Oh, CASA was in April, wasn't it?
it. Yeah.
Never mind my suggestion, John.
We can keep it on there and then.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot about it.
But they don't sell any insurance over there.
You're right.
See?
CSDA, you want to do that or visit for legislative days?
Sure, you want me to do it for you?
Sure.
Sure, yeah, we had President Fairman and I went to Sacramento for a few days, so legislative days, and We met with both our representatives, Senator Mansour, and our new representative in the Senate, Senator Mimi Walters. They were both very, very good meetings. I think after we were meeting with Senator Walters, the President and I both came across, I think we need to do some more education with
Yeah,
Senator Walters.
she didn't know what CSDA was.
She didn't know what CSDA is, and I don't think she has a real good grasp on special districts. So
Really?
we
Nice gal, though.
I informed her that the board is really interested in meeting her, and she says, you know, check back with her in the fall. That's when I think they're just out, or the beginning of the session. So I told Milani to tickle that in her calendar, and when we get closer to the fall, we'll try and invite her to the board, to the HQ to meet with her.
And both of them that we met with were very receptive to our endorsing the bills we were endorsing,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
they agreed with us on I think just about every one.
Yes,
Yeah.
very good. And then CSDA, their day and a half event was very informative. They had the state controller was the guest speaker.
Mhm.
He was pretty good. And then you had some assemblywoman and a senator up there talking about some issues were very good. I also thought that the last session and event they had breakout sessions on roundtables, and when President Fairman went to one on reserve policy, and we had some good information on reserve policy. I know it's been a big issue with the board,
Yeah.
so we worked on that as well.
Just a quick comment. I was there as well, and I really liked that panel with the three legislatures. The guy.
Oh yeah, they were very good.
I,
Yeah.
I, I thought they really did a nice job,
Mhm.
especially the gentleman from Delano or wherever.
No. Palm or
No,
the
the
desert, right?
No,
The cop, former cop.
not the former cop, the other guy.
Oh, I know who you mean.
I'm sorry, he was from
Yeah.
San Luis Obispo, Santa Maria area. He thought he was pretty down to earth.
I thought the cop was too.
The cop was pretty good, actually. Too.
He was good. He was a senator.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, the two were assembly members.
Okay. Any other meetings qualifying for reimbursement? Arlene?
Is it my turn?
It's your turn.
Well,
Center
then on the
stage.
Totem pole. Okay, on
New
the
kid
second,
on the block.
what?
New kid on the block.
That sounds much
No,
better.
It's okay, at least I'm on the block. Who cares? On April 2nd, I went to the ISDOC board meeting, and they discussed May 30th, like Director Schaefer said. And then also discussed the revision of the bylaws. It's been long waited. And then on the 3rd of April, I went to a strategic planning meeting, which we all did. We discussed the following: vision, core, values, and strategic goals. And on the 10th of April, zero waste meeting, I went to that. We discussed reduce, reuse, recycling, rethink, and also definition of zero waste, not getting to zero, but being on the path, upstream. And then on the 16th, operation meeting, the committee meeting, we discussed recycling reports, the recycling center, trash cans stored in alleys, sewer system, which included monthly spill statistics and sewer facts and figures. And on the 18th, I went to Costa Mesa Sanitary District Board meeting, and I attended the meeting. Mr. Mosier made comments, and the board decided to continue the rewards idea program, $100. And I have agendas and lots of notes on it. And then also on the 24th, I went to CASA conference, which is in Newport Beach, and just commuted back and forth. And I have all the documents and programs and everything on that I went to. And I have a newsletter too, if anyone's interested in sharing it. And that's it.
Thank you. Art?
Okay, last Wednesday, I went to the City of Costa Mesa housing element for the what do you call it? I left my notes in my car, but it was really interesting. You had like 50 people there. The organization that they hired ran the meeting, and they had city staff there to explain and tell things, what's going on. It lasted like 2 hours.
What kind of housing was it? Homeless?
Housing element. It's
Oh.
everybody comes in and they take notes of what the citizens want. And they put them on the board Some people wanted handicapped sidewalks, more a main library. A lot of people were concerned about the variances the city's been giving out, and they're concerned about that. And that's why I thought it's important, probably, because each one of the elements, there's like 5 or 6 elements that they have to go through, but the housing element has to be finished by October 18th. And normally you have like 18 months to work on a housing element. They're doing it in a couple months.
That's a general plan.
That's a general
Housing
plan.
element's a mandatory element.
Right.
the general
Mhm.
plan, the most
Right.
important
Yeah.
one probably.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So I'll probably, from that meeting, it goes to a planning commission meeting. And I asked the last question of the night, I said, well, who makes the final decision? Everybody's putting their input, putting everything on the board, and they said the planning commission and the city council make the final plan. No matter what the citizens say,
Yeah.
it goes right to those two groups.
Well, the planning commission makes their recommendation to city
Right.
council for final approval, yeah.
And housing and community development, the state either blesses it or rejects it.
Right. And you can review it and make changes to it, but it has to be in by that date. But it's an ongoing document.
That's a state requirement, that date is
Right.
a
Yeah.
state requirement.
Right. So as they come up, I think it might be of interest for us to attend some of
I
those.
think it's a good idea.
And I thought it was good to listen to what the people had to say, and I got some real good ideas from it. I left my thing, and I'll give you more of an updated report next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have anything, any meetings? Let's go to new business, Board of Directors study session, oral report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I mean, I'll start this off, but we put this on the agenda, saying to consider, instead of having an operations committee, maybe you have a study session similar to what the city council does over at the city of Costa Mesa. I know there's been some frustration among board members that they can't speak at the operations committee. This one option will resolve that. So just, open for discussion.
What's everybody think?
I think it's a good idea.
I do too. I do
like
too.
it. Is part of that, I know there's some concern that people are afraid we might take action. Can we specifically do a policy that says we will take no action at a study session, Alan? Can we do that?
You could just put a bullet point on there. If it's a study session, you're probably gonna not want to take action. I mean, you could, but you could put a preface to it and
Yeah.
say that no action will be taken. This will simply be for input. You
Well-
can put that right in the beginning of each agenda,
Okay.
just to reinforce it.
The other thing I remember from city council study sessions was the general public's allowed to speak for 3 minutes at at a study session. They got 1 minute.
That's at your pleasure.
Is it?
Yes.
Yeah, it depends on.
If you're, trying to get more business.
And we can also control the size of the agenda. I mean, it doesn't have to be like a duplicate, regular board meeting. If it's really a study session, it can just be 1 or 2 items that we want to focus on.
And we're just recommending it to our board.
Yeah,
But we've been using the operations committee to talk about, sewer and trash, which
Yeah.
there's quite a few issues there.
Sure.
That's the only
Yeah.
thing about it.
Sure.
Well,
Unless you did more than one.
you could still do that.
We
We
could
could
still
go-
have the same format, we'll just call it a study session.
Just call it a
Yeah,
study session.
that's what I mean. It's still going to be a lot of issues that we have to discuss.
We'll keep the agenda. the way
And if we
it is.
needed an additional one for a specific item, we could have that.
And I think, I don't think we need to put that in there that we can't take action. I don't think we should take action, but in an emergency situation, why not have that option? I mean, we're not,
Yeah, it's just a gentleman's
You know.
agreement that we don't take action.
yeah, I mean, I don't want to do that as a,
Gentlemen's agreement.
You could also put it on there
General
when,
person's agreement.
when you did not intend to take action, which would be most of the time, you can put the statement in there, but sometimes you're gonna say, we need to take action that time, and then you
Yeah.
would not put that on there. Or you'd say,
yeah,
on items 1 through 3, but on item 4, action will be taken, or something like that.
yeah, I mean,
The only bad thing about
I'm
that,
okay with
most of
that.
those study sessions are during the morning hours. A lot of people can't attend. I mean, that's the only negative thing.
That's the reason I brought up taking no action part. I mean, just for discussion and to get information.
yeah.
And quite honestly, Art, these board meetings are at 5:30 on a Thursday.
I know.
I mean,
But
it's
it
not
depends
well
what the
put.
issues are going to be.
Absolutely.
But if it's just replacing if it's going to be called the operations study session, that's one thing.
Yeah, and for the, I mean, for the board's pleasure, I can, you know, if I believe an item needs to take action, I can confer with the chairman, and, you know, the chairman
Yeah.
says, yeah, let's put that as an action.
Yeah, we don't want to do it as a rule, but
But I think that's a good idea.
Just so the public knows what we're
Yeah.
planning. Maybe, I like that idea, put as an action item.
okay.
Would the intent be for us to bring it back to you to disband or to do away with the operations committee then and go to this
That would,
schedule?
I think that's what the
It's
board's,
less-
I prefer that.
We might as well get that off the books, so we
Yeah.
don't have
Yeah.
additional
Right, that's-
compliance issues.
You'll come back with a report next
We'll have
month?
to revise the ordinance.
Yeah.
Exactly.
okay.
So that'll be at the next board meeting, so we will have our operations, normal operations next month.
In June, yes, so you'll probably, so the operation study session would be, yes, in July.
Okay. Anything else on that? Item 25, CSDA award nominations.
Yeah, this was actually requested by Director Schaefer. Was that on the agenda?
What shape?
Director Schaefer.
Oh.
Vice President Schaefer, Director Schaefer.
That's the person one.
Get confused
It was
there.
you.
Oh, okay. Oh, was it? Okay. I'm trying to remember. Oh, I know what it was. You know, on this, CSDA has the awards every year, which we all are aware of. And I wanted to put our manager up for award. He made a real good presentation at LAFCO, which I was at, in May, and really citing us, how great, you know, what all the things we're doing and everything. I just sat there, I was so impressed with us, you know, it sounded really good. And then I was thinking, you know, wouldn't it be neat for him to write up something and that we put his name in for the general manager of the year?
I'd support that.
CSDA.
I don't know, people may start calling it for a job.
He's priceless.
I have a question for Director Schaefer.
Yes.
Does that mean you want him to write his own
Sure.
recommendation?
No. Well, he can put his about us.
Well, he can give whoever's
Yeah.
going to write a resume, and then they can.
And
Put it
then,
together.
you know, we can submit it from there. Anyway, I'd like to make that as a motion.
Okay, I'll second that. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, thank you.
Oral communications and director comments.
Who's that?
Art.
Okay. You know, the Daily Pilot or the Register didn't put our article in the paper regarding the award that we won. Would it be worth us putting it in ourselves and paying for the article, or not?
Like an advertisement.
I mean, because they're, you know, there's not interested in this much.
You're giving them money now. You're giving them money.
I know, but I mean, that bothers me that they wouldn't put an article in the paper like that.
Yeah.
And they put some other articles in the
Well,
paper that are.
put it in the register. The pilot circulation is just awful.
I mean, I just throw that out for discussion.
One of the things that you're aware that the Register now publishes a daily
Yeah.
Current,
called the
current.
Right, that's it.
That's where we need to focus.
Oh, big time.
Actually,
That
what I
would
would
be good.
suggest, maybe it's, you know, Bubble Color On seems like it's more hits than these newspapers. Maybe you talk to Bubble Color On and put some stuff on there and it doesn't cost us anything. You know?
Yeah,
And I just think that we need to get the information out, but, you know, I don't like to pay.
Yeah, that's my only concern. You're right. I feel like we're rewarding them for it. I think that's just the nature of the beast when dealing with
well,
journalists.
not if
you
we
know,
did the register though, you know,
Well,
this new sheet.
Well, the one way to get your point across, I think, and even the pilot's pretty good about this, is we need to be more aggressive with editorials. They publish almost every editorial,
that's
I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
except during elections. But I mean,
I'm here to disagree with that.
I just think that's one way we could strike at them. But you're
I
right.
mean,
they're-
I just think that needs to be told, you know,
You're so right.
our success. And maybe the Current would be a way to go. But I like the bubbling call. I don't look at it, but
I
it
do.
gets a lot of
Yeah.
hits.
does it?
It's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, it does.
Well, you could do both.
How did Jeff West, did people submit things to him to put on the bubbling cauldron?
Absolutely not.
No,
I mean,
no.
so.
No, he
so
just
I don't
doesn't.
know how.
It's all his opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, how then could we
Well,
make use of that?
I just think the more you talk to him and the more you communicate with him, and you can pass things on. He'll link to things. Like he'll say, you know, sanitary district got an award.
Mhm.
If you want more information, click here. It takes you to whatever.
We have
is
no link,
published.
we have no link though.
Well, we can
generally
link on a
pretty
press
current.
release.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
yeah.
can link on a press release.
Okay.
Why don't we put out another press release, see if anything happens this time, and then we can.
Yeah, what do I do is, I'll call the editor and say, hey, we're a little disappointed on the article. You put
Yeah.
out. You know, you didn't, you know,
We-
we some newsletters.
Good call, Scott.
And Press Department had discussion with him about this,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
just fall through on
Which
it.
editor?
Joe.
Canales.
Joe Canales.
John Canales.
Because you know, there's a new one
Yeah, there's a
now.
new lady.
They just
I can-
came out
yeah,
with
there's
the
a new
scout.
lady.
But Canales is still,
Gomez.
Canales is still the one you want to go.
Well, it might not be a bad idea to meet that new editor.
Yeah.
You know, maybe she's got a head on
That
her
was my
shoulders.
comment. I mean, it's
Okay.
bugging me.
Yeah. that's-
Anybody else have anything?
comment.
Bob?
Former Director Fitzpatrick brought up the Newport Coast trash contract, so I went back and looked up all my notes and did more thinking about it. Turns out that the Newport Coast is about 10% of the population of Newport, and the residents produce about 20%, at least in our district, of the trash tonnage. And so by the time you get done, you know, we're talking about 2% of the trash tonnage in Newport Beach as justification for us to decide whether we go out to bid or not. And there's huge concessions, you know, Kobe. There's huge concessions in a very wealthy area, and so when the city fathers or the city council, Newport Beach City Council, recognized this, you know, they said, well, let's just let them recycle 40%, and let's pay for their trash, the extra trash cans, which we charge the residents for. You know, so you know the gap between us and them, the cost is not much. It's about $1 a month at most, which if you divide that by 30, it's 3 cents a day, or you can get half a cup of Starbucks coffee. So it's so irritating. I may just have to. My blood pressure's down, so now it's just more fun to go back and dink around with these numbers. But we're talking about a contract that is 2% of Newport Beach's trash tonnage, as the swaying, as swaying in former Director Fitzpatrick's mind that we ought to go out to bid. It's just stupid.
Thank you for those enlightened comments.
And I was hoping the reporters would come tonight. I sent it to them, and they said, and that's why they said, well, we're not coming tonight. I said, it's just such a shame.
Any other oral
you didn't
communication?
run.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Arlene?
You know, the Orange County Fair is coming up, and with it, I was wondering if we will be doing trash cans for them with our names on for publicity.
Orange County Fair? No, but we usually have composting events out at the Orange County Fair.
I know that, but at the same time, they do need trash containers of some sort. And I was just thinking it's a great time for us to be able to put a label or something.
Oh,
Well-
on trash cans
Yeah,
for people.
yeah,
Oh,
to throw their trash.
You mean the cardboard ones?
Yeah, anything.
That's what we use at the fish fry.
Right.
You get them from CR&R or whoever.
Anyway, it's a thought, and we might
That-
think about it, or.
That used to be my job. I used to dump the trash cans into the dump truck at the fair
Oh,
through 4 years of
really?
college. Yeah,
Really?
that was my job.
Roots go deep.
You,
Well, I just thought it'd be
Roots go deep
good
for
for
you.
us to get, you know, some.
whoever the hauler is there, they ought to just call them and say, hey, bring some over, you know. We all have them,
They must contract with a vendor.
yeah.
So
Back
you're
then
not
it was-
interested in it?
Well, I don't
don't
think
know.
it's our, you know, we don't have them, so we just have to go, we'd be an intermediary. We'd have to go ask CR&R or Waste Management or, you know.
Okay.
You
But-
could research it a little bit more and find out who the vendor is.
they're not going to put our name on the side of those cardboard boxes, I mean, Costa Mesa Sanitary District. It's going to say CR&R, So, anyway, Mike.
Just a reminder to everybody that weekend following Memorial Day is Fish Fry, and we will have a presence. The district will have a presence at the Fish Fry with a booth, and looking forward to June 3rd.
Is that Monday?
That's Monday.
Forward to June, yeah,
June 3rd.
So there's nothing else new, as far as,
Well, I could report.
BBC or?
Oh, I can talk to you after the meeting. I would report that when I returned from my Panama Canal cruise, Logan David Schaefer entered the world the day after we got. My daughter-in-law was smart enough to wait till Grandma and I got home, and we have a new left-handed pitcher in the family.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Stogie there.
And with that, anything, anybody has anything for the good of the cause? If not, I'm adjourning this meeting.
I don't smoke, so I just thought I'd throw that out there.